Welcome to Seltzer Squad, the podcast about staying sober in the city, with your hosts, Kate Sander and Jess Valentine.
Hey everyone, Natalie here, editor and producer of Seltzer Squad. If you want access to even more Seltzer Squad content, you should check out our Patreon. There are 2 tiers. The first one is Princess FOMO, which is $2.99 a month, and for that you get early access to every episode on Wednesday instead of Friday. And if you're a former hot mess, for $4.99, you can have that plus video episodes of every episode that comes out, plus surprise bonus content. You just have to sign up to find out. Go to patreon.com/Seltzer Squad.
Hey, Kate. So someone in our Facebook group made a joke saying that you never finish books. So I'm just curious, have you finished any books lately?
So I believe the last Audible ad was talking about Blackout, and no, I haven't finished that one. I often don't finish books, but I don't feel bad because I'm just listening. I'm currently listening to a book on emotional childhood neglect called Running on Empty, and if you guys sign up to audibletrial.com/Seltzer Squad, you can get your first month for free and listen to books haphazardly like we do.
The best part about listening to a book on Audible is it's kind of like a podcast. You can drop it at any time and pick it up anytime. So definitely use our promo code and get your first month free. Good evening, Kate. How are you?
Good.
We did a hot mess episode recently because it had been a while, and I feel like it's also been a while since we've done a questions.
Yeah. I feel like it's been even longer. I'm looking at our list here. Oh, I guess we did one. Around the same time. Yeah. Let's answer some questions.
Do you want to start?
Sure. But before we start, I just want to remind everyone that we are not professionals in any sense of the word. We are 2 assholes answering questions. The only qualification we have to give any opinions is that we are indeed sober.
Yes.
So let's answer some questions.
Exactly. All right.
I'll read S.
Yes.
Okay. S writes, I just relapsed in the worst way possible. I physically hurt my boyfriend when I was blacked out on my birthday, which was this past Sunday. I recall nothing from the night except him hitting me in the face as I lay naked on the cold floor of our hotel room, so my understanding of the situation was warped. He woke up, I saw bruises on his arm, a black eye, and he was holding his shoulder. He told me I had kicked him off the bed and his shoulder was dislocated. I was in shock. He is still furious, and I don't know what Dark Sarah did because he's withholding. I made it 5 months not getting blacked out, and now I'm not sure. And now I'm back to square one with an injured partner. I'm beside myself, and I don't know how to make it right except to obviously stop drinking alcohol again. Have you experienced violence during a blackout? How do you deal with the fallout when you don't even know this dark side of you? Having a hard time understanding how to accept this side of myself that I am so unaware and not in control of.
That's a deep one, huh?
This is a tough question.
I mean, yeah, the short answer is yes.
Yes, quit drinking?
Well, yes, but yes, I've also experienced violence while being blacked out and stuff.
You were the violent person or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I was not prepared to get into this right now.
Yeah, we're really starting.
It's hard. I think it's really hard. I think it's definitely something that you carry the shame with for ever. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know. Maybe you need to maybe you have anger issues that aren't being dealt with. I don't know. For me, I went to a regular doctor and told him that I was always angry and I didn't say anything about being violent. And then I got put on mood stabilizers / antidepressants, anti-anxiety. You can't drink while being on those, which I did. And that was towards the end. But yeah, it's really hard because it's when you're drinking, I feel like when you're sober, you know how to fight the urges to do shit that is irrational and not okay. And when you're drinking, you have no inhibitions. You do whatever the fuck you want. There's no like rationalizing, like thinking about the consequences
Or like
of your
communicating your
actions.
anger in a normal way.
Mm-mm. So you're not alone. Um,
Definitely not alone.
but yeah, I think that talking to like a therapist and starting there is probably, and well, obviously stopping drinking in therapy or something was probably you're going to be your best bet. I know that that's what I needed, and I don't know if that's something that you can just like magically fix on your own. So I feel like maybe some people are magical, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't afford therapy. And I understand that, but that's like some deep rooted shit. So
Yeah.
as one violent ex drunk, blacker outer to another, like you need to like address that like yesterday.
Yeah. I think that's tough. I mean, it's so many things, right? Like obviously you need to remove yourself from situations with alcohol, stop drinking alcohol, get the help that you need for that, and
Hmm.
then begin to address the anger and shame around this situation. Like, has this happened in any capacity before?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I know that like TJ would say that like I was really mean to him, but he wouldn't necessarily. And I never really wanted to know what I did when I was blacked out. So I was like, do
Right.
not fucking tell me. I cannot handle it. Um, but I think I had gotten physical with him a couple of times, like not obviously to this level. But then there's also a choice in the relationship. Like I think I've said before on here, he had to really like evaluate if I was somebody he wanted to stay with, knowing that like there was this darker
You can
side of
get like
me.
that. Yeah.
And ultimately, you have no control over what the other person wants to do, but you do have control over what you want to do. And so I suggest getting the help that you need to stop drinking and then beginning to unravel where this anger is coming from. I think I just still don't really know. I don't really have anger like that anymore. Do you have anger like that anymore?
No, I don't think
Do
so.
you think that you did in early sobriety? I think I was angry in early sobriety.
I
Like
don't
I remember
remember.
even in like toddler sobriety, I had like a year where I was just fucking mad. I'm not mad like that anymore.
No, I'm not mad like that anymore. But like there are times that like if I'm in a fight, I like know that if I was drinking, like
Mm-hmm.
or even if it was like before I had started therapy, like it would have been gone down so differently.
Yeah, and I think a lot of my anger and frustration comes from not feeling seen and heard, which
Yes.
obviously the alcohol put fuel on the fire for me to like pop off about. And now I think I have like a more self-awareness to where I can like say to TJ, like, I feel like you're not paying enough attention to me, or you're not meeting my needs in this way. And it's a more rational conversation. Or I can tell that to Nance and be like, I'm mad
Yeah.
at the world because XYZ, and she can help me sort of work through that. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without those
Yeah.
tools that she's given me.
Absolutely.
But I'm sorry that you're in this
Uh,
situation. That one's that's
that is a
tough.
tough one. But I mean, obviously you're like trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Admitting it to yourself is kind of like the first step, because a lot of people just like kind of are in denial about it and, blame the other person and the situation. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
all
Good
right.
luck to you.
I'm going to read
S.
T.
Okay.
Hi, Jes and Kate. I was wondering if you could talk about any experiences with cross addiction and how this has changed during your recovery. In my 4th year of sobriety, and have noticed I am using sugar the same way I use alcohol, mindlessly consuming to numb out. I'm not tempted to drink, but I feel like a hypocrite in recovery as I'm still repeating the same destructive behavior. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Oh, that's very different. It's not as, I don't think it's
I
even
laugh
close
because
to
we
being
were
as,
both like had that.
yeah, but it's also just like not as serious. Like I get what they're saying, like because it's like self-destructive, but it's definitely a better transference, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like this goes back to a few episodes ago when we talked about do we just have addictive personalities?
Mm-hmm.
Like, um,
Yeah, I'm
I think
constantly
in
on
the
the lookout. Like obviously, like my addiction transference like ebbs and flows in different areas. Like sometimes it's body stuff, sometimes it's food stuff, sometimes it's shopping, sometimes it's doom scrolling. Like obviously
Doom
vaping.
scrolling.
Like I can definitely, I think the thing that I always have to stop and ask myself why I'm doing it. Like what is the root cause of, if I'm like trying to numb out with food or sugar, it's the same reason why I was trying to numb out with alcohol. Obviously the result is different. I don't get like blacked out and pee my pants in my bed. I like, like have a sugar headache and go to sleep. So obviously that's much more healthy on the spectrum of unhealthiness.
Of course.
But yeah, it goes back to the why. I think a lot of times I'm like a dopamine chaser. And so, food gives me that dopamine. Internet gives me dopamine.
As soon as I finish dinner, I have to have like candy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's crazy.
But I just have to like challenge, are you going through a tough time? And that's why, you've had this increase. Like I need to know more details about like what's coming up now that like, have you been using sugar for 4 years and you're only noticing it now, mindlessly consuming to numb out. Numb out from what would be my follow-up question. I think you also just have to be nice to yourself and give yourself a little bit of leeway and know that like, sugar's not going to kill you the same way alcohol will kill you. You're obviously aware that you're mindlessly consuming it. So if you can be more mindful around the consumption, I just don't know that like our brains ever just like become non-addicted to things or non-addictive.
Yeah, right.
I think I'll have to be on the patrol for probably the rest of my life to see like in what areas am I sort of like dipping into destructive category, destructive
is it
territory.
Ever really over?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it ever really over? And is what I'm doing now, can I be okay with that on some level? Like when I'm, extremely stressed and I'm overeating, like, can I be okay with that for this near future and know that that's something that I'm like aware of now and need to work on? I think that's perfectly acceptable. I don't think that we get like all the way healed or all the way cured or all the way all the way sober from everything and every aspect of our lives. I think that's...
Yeah, it's just like it's a constant thing you're always going to be working on, I think. So
cut yourself some slack and congratulations on 4 years of sobriety.
Yeah, congrats.
Jess, what's another way listeners can support the pod?
The best way that someone can support our podcast, besides from joining our Patreon, is to also treat themselves to sober treats, because we have a whole merch store.
From Princess FOMO to Former Hot Mess, we've got you guys covered. Check out seltzersquadshop.com to treat yourself to something sober
while supporting the pod.
Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.com. If your New Year's resolution, like me, was to start going to therapy, you will love BetterHelp.com. It is cheaper and more convenient than conventional therapy. You can talk to a licensed, real therapist online via call, video chat, or just text, whatever you're feeling like, whatever you feel comfortable with. Go to BetterHelp.com. They'll set you up with a real, licensed, professional therapist. You take a short quiz and they decide who they think would be best for you. But if you don't like them for whatever reason, you can switch at any time. Just go to betterhelp.com, and if you use our code Seltzer Squad or go to betterhelp.com/Seltzer Squad, you will get 10% off your first month. Don't put it off anymore. Go to betterhelp.com and get started with real therapy today.
Okay, I'm going to read. Wait, did I just read one?
Yeah, it's my turn.
Okay, your turn.
Okay, I'm going to read M. Okay. M writes, I'm a new listener about to reach my 100 days. Thanks for creating this podcast. Congratulations to you. Okay. I heard you mention in the last one that you're running low on ideas, and I have one. I've noticed in my sober apps and on podcasts that a lot of women are in recovery, but I haven't heard so many stories from women about the relationship between anger and drinking. Which is interesting because this is like the last story we read. I think in general, as a culture, we expect men to be more aggro drunks, but I quit because I felt too scary and angry when I drank. I wanted to manage my emotions better. I was kind of pleased to discover you had one episode that briefly touched on the theme. It involved your knives story, i.e. the story in which you did something terrifying and ragey that you can't relate to sober. As part of my recovery, I'm going to therapy for anger exploration because I do think that part of the reason my drinking became a problem is because I wanted to numb out a lot of unfair or shitty situations I experienced as a young woman in work and early in romantic relationships. I had no idea how to manage my anger or even recognize it. I don't hear women talk about this a lot, and maybe that's because I'm not participating in any recovery groups, but I wonder if you'd be willing to devote an entire episode to anger. Maybe, but we can also answer this question. Anger is so tricky for women, and I think hearing more about it from women could help a lot of people on this journey like myself. I have questions like, what did you learn about anger through recovery, and how do you deal with stuff that pisses you off in your new sober lives or as you age? Those are good questions.
We're all about the anger today. All about the anger today, man.
I think I had a weird relationship with it before, and I think getting drunk was my gateway to release it. I think I didn't allow myself to be angry in real life when I was drinking, and so I would just like swallow it, and then when my inhibitions were low enough or when I was drunk enough or blacked out, then they could come out and express themselves, and then it's almost like I didn't really have to like take responsibility for that, even though I do, or did, but I felt a separateness from my anger in doing that. And now I try to speak up when I'm angry. I'm still not great about it. And like, I have like a visceral body reaction. Like I break out in hives, like all the way up my neck. Like you can tell if I'm saying something really serious or voicing like some sort of inequality, then I will literally break out in hives. So I'm still working on that. Like, I don't know how to, politely be angry. I think you're better at that. You're better at firmly like standing in one side and like voicing your voice. And I still have trouble with that for sure.
I don't know if I do or not. I think it depends.
Like when you were drinking, I felt like if you
way.
could fly off the handle and say whatever came to your mind. Now I don't think you're as like impulsive, but I think you will still speak your mind, and it's much more respectful and appropriate.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
you will be heard. Where like I'll swallow it.
Oh yeah, I mean it depends on the situation, obviously, but definitely had no filter when I was drinking. That's for sure.
Like when was the last time you got like not at a partner or like in like adulthood or life now? When was the last time you got really, really, really angry, and what did you do about it?
I was this close at the airport to some guy who was listening to his fucking music really loud on his phone at 6 a.m. I was this close to saying something to him, but I didn't. I just said really loud to my sister, I'm this close to saying something to this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and that was it. But it's hard because like our initial reaction sometimes, like at least for me, it's like I'll just let something go. Like it'll boil and then I like freak out rather than like speaking up when it occurs or starts happening. So I try to not let things fester anymore. But I have to remember like this person doesn't know that they're annoying me per se. So it's not really fair for me to just snap at them. Like, you get more flies with honey than vinegar or whatever. Like I need to try to remember to be like, hey, do you mind like turning that down?
Right.
Rather than being like, can you not?
Yeah.
Because it's, even though you're asking for the same thing, it's such a different way of going about it. And it's true. It's just like, just try to be nicer and not let my anger always get the best of me. But it's hard sometimes, because people suck.
I realize when I'm getting angry, it's because one of my needs is not being met. And I have to like go in and be like, okay, what is the need that's not being met? Is it like, I'm feeling disrespected? I'm feeling like walked all over. Did I contribute to this? And I go through that, I think, a little bit more now. I'm able to like slow the situation down and not react immediately. And then I also just try to deliver it with like the most respect. Like even at work, I'll say like, all due respect, like I disagree. I don't think we should do that. I think here's the problems that I foresee. And I always say like, cause a lot of times when I'm angry, I'm just really frustrated. So I always try to replace that and say, I'm really frustrated right now. or I'm really disappointed right now. And I think a lot of my anger comes from those two places, disappointment and frustration. And so
That's a good point.
I pick a lot of my battles. And then if something like flares in the heat of the moment, I try not to react right away, because nothing good is going to come from that in the moment for either party. That I have to just like take it and hold it. But then I also know that what I did before was swallow it, and now I need to release it. So at some point I have to say like, hey, this happened. It wasn't okay. I'm really frustrated that this is how it ended up, and I'd like to talk about it. And usually that brings like a more human response from the other person versus like, you know, a yelling match. And
I know. You really have to retrain yourself.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Because I'm very like flight in a fight or flight. So I also have to tell myself not to walk away, that like sometimes it's okay to stay in the room and not react and let it be uncomfortable, which is like, I think, a very useful skill for women, especially because, you know, you don't have to like sit on it, but you don't have to react either. So if something is really fucking pissing you off, you can like hang on to that for 15 minutes, like let it, you know, sleep on it, and then kind of come back to it later, like a mean email or like a shitty situation. Like nothing requires an immediate response. You can come back to that later when you feel more like in regulation.
Yeah, I've been practicing that lately too. Like something's been going on. Like I don't even want to get into it, but the girl I had a fire, and so I'm like, okay, don't react right now because you're really emotional. You need to like wait. And then obviously like I'm not going to do anything in 3 days because it's like I'm not going to sink down to this level or whatever. But it's hard with like something like that initially pisses you off. Your immediate reaction is to do something, you know? So it's like you said, sitting in it, like letting you feel the feels, go through it, and then just like instead of sending a text, like write it down in your notes and like leave it for a minute. So I'm working on that. Also, when I'm like texting, like if I'm fighting with my partner or whatever, I'm trying to be better about not rapid fire texting, because that is like definitely a problem of mine. So yeah. And I think sitting on it and not swallowing it is helpful so that you can come back to it. And then I learn a lot of TikTok tips about like communicating yourself and how you can, you know, get the upper hand in a conversation. So I'm always looking for those kinds of resources, like those psychology hacks or whatever, that you can kind of express yourself with confidence, even if you're expressing something kind of unpleasant, and still feel confident and like you have the upper hand. But most of the time, like if I get really pissed about something, like 3 days later, I'm not mad about that anymore. So if I'm still mad about it, then I know I need to bring it up. But if I'm not mad about it after 3 days, I'm glad I waited. Yeah.
And that's the difference. Because like when you're drunk, you're in the moment and only in the moment. And so you have to pop off immediately and like create a scene or do something violent.
That's such a good point too. It's like, and then
you can't stop yourself.
Yeah. And then it's like, you never regret. It's like not sending a shitty text or whatever. But like in 3 days, if it's still bothering you, then send it. Like, you know,
you can always like pull someone aside and be like, I need to talk to you, which is like the best line ever, because then they're already going into it freaked out.
That's true.
And you already have the upper hand, you know, but like we need to talk is like always good.
These were good. These were very good questions. And it's like kind of giving me anxiety. So
yes. But if you guys want to write in, you can email us at seltzersquadpod@gmail.com and put question in your subject.
Yes, and maybe we'll answer it.
And we will answer it on the pod.
Until we meet again.
Be nice to yourself.
And don't forget.
Hangovers suck.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Kate Sander. For show notes and resources, check out seltzersquad.com.